Hi, I'm Andy. Have you come here to see the difference between the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the iPhone 14 Pro Max? Well, then you come to the right place. In this video we are going to focus on three things. The first thing is we are going to see the difference in specifications, and the second thing is we are going to see the difference in design, and of course we are going to discuss the actual experienced differences after switching from the iPhone 12 Pro Max to the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So let's dig in. Let's start with point number one, which is specifications. And the only difference in, size is that the iPhone 14 is a 0.5 millimeter thinner and a 0.5 millimeter taller, which makes it really annoying because then you can't use the same cases. And also the weight difference is, not that big. The iPhone 14 is 12 grams heavier than the iPhone 12 Pro Max. But even though the difference is small, you can actually feel the difference between the phones. So even though it's only 12 grams, you can definitely feel it. And on the positive things, both phones are actually rated for IP68. But the different specifications of the screens are a little bit more interesting. The iPhone 12 Pro Max only has a 60 Hz screen, but the iPhone 14 Pro Max has a screen that can go up to 120 Hz, which makes it feel a lot more smooth in every movement. And the screen brightness of the iPhone 14 Pro Max can get almost twice as bright as the iPhone 12 Pro Max. But the difference in resolution is minor. As you can see here, it's only a couple of pixels both ways, so you won't be able to recognize any difference in resolution. And maybe the biggest difference in specifications between these two phones may be in the camera, and mainly the iPhone 14 Pro Max's 48 megapixel main sensors, while all the other sensors on the iPhone 12 Pro Max is 12 megapixels. But you need to be aware that you need to activate the Pro RAW feature in the camera app to be able to utilize all the 48 megapixels on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. If you don't do that, all the photos you take will be at 12 megapixels. But on the CPU side, it isn't that much of a difference here. The iPhone 14 Pro Max has a newer and a little bit faster processor, but in use there isn't that much of a difference. But one difference between these two phones are actually in the battery. And it is about 550 milliamp hours bigger on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So with a newer CPU, which is maybe a little bit more power efficient and a bigger battery, you should be able to have a longer lasting phone than on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And now for point two, differences in design. And on the left side here we have the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and on the right side we have the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So let's just start with one of the sides, and we will just pick them up, and we see, on this side we can see that we have the power button here on the almost exact same place, and also the antennas are these bands you can see on the top and the bottom here. And one thing you can clearly see now is how much more the cameras are sticking out on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So yeah, we will see this throughout this part of the video, I think. And on the top, we just have one antenna band. On the other side, we have the volume buttons, and also the tray where the SIM card lives. And on the bottom of the phones, we have the lightning port and the speakers. So this side is, identical. And this here is the biggest difference you will see every day, and that is, the top of the screens. As you can see on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, we have the earpiece speaker here, and we also have some cameras and sensors. And on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, we have the dynamic island, which has all the cameras and sensors, but we also have the earpiece speaker all the way up top here in the little slot there. But other than that, it isn't actually possible to see any difference on the phones from this angle, except, well, the top. And now for, well, the biggest design differences, well, it's on the back side, and mainly the camera sections. And if I put the phones like this, it's easy to see that, well, the camera portions almost takes up half of the backspace on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And it is smaller on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And this is the main reason why you can't take your case from your iPhone 12 Pro Max and put on your iPhone 14 Pro Max. Well, without modifications. Because the cutout for the cameras are much smaller on the iPhone 12 than on the iPhone 14. So yeah, that's, well, they have every difference. Well, of course, this one is blue and this one is black. And now for point number 3, which is my actual experience differences. And I want to start to say that I used the iPhone 12 Pro Max for 1.5 years before I got the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which I have used for about a month now. And now I want to talk about my positive experiences with iPhone 14 Pro Max. And the first thing I want to say is, well, the screen is truly amazing on this phone. The screen actually makes it feel like a whole other phone because it's so smooth, it's so bright, even in, well, outside in the sun. And it makes for a completely different experience since it has the high refresh rate and also the bright screen. So I just love that. And I also really love that the iPhone finally has an always-on display. I got so used to it when I used an Android phone that that was actually one of the things I missed the most when I switched to the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So now that I finally have it, I just love to have the clock and also the weather always showing on my display. And another thing I actually really like is the battery time feels much better on this phone. I think it's a combination of the bigger battery and more power efficient CPU, and maybe the screen, which is a variable refresh rate, which maybe makes up for the better battery time. But whatever it is, I really like it. And now for the disappointments. Well, as I said in the specification parts, the phone feels heavier. Even if it's just 12 grams, just like when I hold it now, I feel the weight difference. I can switch hands and I still, well, feel the weight difference. And when I first got the iPhone 12 Pro Max, I really enjoyed the weight because it makes it feel like it's really high quality and well built. The 14 Pro Max still feels really high quality and well built, but the extra weight of the iPhone 14 doesn't make the phone feel more exclusive or better in any way. So I don't understand why it feels more heavy, and I think it's unnecessary. And another difference that really annoys me is how you get to the notification center on this phone. And that I'm used to swipe from, well, the top of the screen. You just pull down from the middle and it doesn't show up. And it annoys me because, well, I have quite large fingers, so sometimes it shows up and I didn't understand why, but that was when I actually swiped on the side of the dynamic island. And it took me actually a couple of weeks before I noticed that it is actually the dynamic island that isn't responsive to swipe gestures. It does register clicks. I can feel the phone vibrate when I click it, but it doesn't recognize swipes. So I've now got used to swiping from the side, but that was annoying when I used a couple of weeks there, really swiping my phone like crazy to get the notification center up. So yeah, that really annoyed me. And the next difference between these two phones that really annoys me is camera related. And that is a feature that is on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. That is not a feature on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And that is a feature they call macro control. And that is when you are in the camera app, even if you are filming or taking a photo. When you're closing up on an object, it actually automatically switches between the different lenses. It maybe has an algorithm that says, oh, if it's like this, you should switch to the wide angle lens. And that really annoys me because I can focus on an object, moving closer to get the perfect photo or the perfect angle for a video, and it just changes it. And sometimes it looks okay, but most of the times it doesn't look good at all, because there are differences between the different lenses. The colors look different, the field of view is different, so the object actually looks different in the different lenses. You can actually change between the lenses yourself with the zoom slider. So in my opinion, it is not a great design that they hide the ability to disable this feature so deep in the settings, because a not so tech-savvy person will think that, well, okay, this feature I can't, what is this? It just makes my photos look like crap. So they should make it much more obvious. But besides that, the limited time I actually spent testing the cameras on the iPhone 14 Pro Max revealed that it didn't feel that different from the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So I want to make a more in-depth test, testing both the phones in different scenarios with both photos and video, to make a comparison video between these two. So, in conclusion, what do I feel about the upgrade from the iPhone 12 Pro Max to the iPhone 14 Pro Max? Well, in one word, boring. There aren't that many differences between these two phones. It's mainly the screen that's the difference, but that's about it. In 2 years, I would have hoped that I actually had some more new things, but well, that's not that's not how it is, sadly. So there's really not much more to say about it. So thank you so much for watching this video. Leave a comment below if you are actually upgrading from the iPhone 12 to the 14, even if it's the regular Pro or Pro Max versions. I really know what your reasons are. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the camera comparison video between the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the iPhone 14 Pro Max.